the Russian army, and every Russian drank tea every day. He was a multi-millionaire, and he left millions of dollars to tzedakah. He spent tons of money helping people move to Eretz Yisrael. And what happened is the Zionists, already in the 1800s, they were pressuring him to open up a tea company in Eretz Yisrael. Because you're a big tea to open up in Eretz Yisrael. So he didn't want to, he pushed him, because it was the reason why he didn't want to, because the tariffs were huge and it was just a very difficult thing to do. But they forced him to do it, they pressured him, so he said, okay, I'll do it. What happened was, after he died, and the tea empire was left to the next generation, the Tsarist Russia fell to the communists, to the Bolsheviks, and they confiscated his entire network of tea concessions, and they lost everything overnight, except for the company they had in Eretz Yisrael. And they all moved to Eretz Yisrael, and today Vysotsky is a huge tea company still, all because he opened up in Eretz Yisrael. Gewaltig. Okay. The Neshama should have an aliyah.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard Rav Gershon Edelstein was next year.
Yeah. It Levi's 3:30 in Eretz Yisrael, which is like about 8:00. 8:30.
I haven't heard when the Levi was.
Because you don't look for Advazos Nias.
I guess.
And the Conservative Party had a resounding win in Alberta last night. Okay. Just like in Ontario, there's no Liberal Party. They got 0 seats. They're always Quebec. So it's just a two-way battle between the Conservatives and the NDP. Okay, so let's see what the Heilige Gemara says over here. Yesterday we learned that the Mishnah that says Tnu Mana Laploini, it works. Rav said it has to be B'tzavurin, the money has to be there piled up. And we had 2 pshatim as to why that had to be piled up. We had the Svar of Zvid, who says it's a new kinyan of Ape Tlasa, where when 3 people are standing there, Reuben could say, give this to Shimon, you tell Levi, give this to Shimon, that's a kinyan of Ape Tlasa, and it has to be Tzavurin. According to one shita, the Gemara ended up bringing another shita that even by a milva it will work. The second shot in the why it has to be tzivurin is that it's speaking by a matna shchivmera, and Rav holds that a matna shchivmera has to be tzivurin. Again, we don't hold like that either. Okay, Gvaldik. I believe that we got up to Yudalit Amud Aleph. The Gemara wanted to know what is the reason, how does the mechanics of a kinyan of Ba'apet Lasa work. So the Gemara in fact says we don't have a reason for it at all, because it's Hani Tlas Mili Shavinu Rabbanon Kehilchasa B'loy Time. There is no explanation for it. As Rashi says, it's just like a halacha l'Moshe Messinai. Tosfos explains there's a reason why they wanted this kinyan to work. That's to make it easy to have transactions. But the mechanics of how it works, we don't have an explanation for that. And there's actually 3 things that work without an explanation. Number 1 is the kinyan of Apit Lasa, which we've just learned. The idach, and the second item is Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, HaKosev Kol Nechasav Le'ishtoi. What if someone writes a star to his wife that all my nechasim belong to you? He doesn't mean it, and it doesn't belong to her. Lo yasa ela apertuka. He's just giving her control. Rashi says lahachlus lahaiti. He's just making her executor of the estate. He's giving her power, but it's not hers. Even if he wrote my entire estate is given to you, she doesn't really get it. Thank you so much. There's no lumnus in how that works. Why technically a perfectly good kinyan is not a kinyan? How could they take away from her what's legally hers? The hefker, bezin hefker. So if someone gives everything to his wife, it's not, he doesn't really mean to give it. It's not really his. In other words, In other words, when his wife told him to give him everything, she didn't really mean give her everything. That's just my interpretation. Thank you, Mati. And the third Hilchas B'loi Taima is the Amar Rab Chananya Hamesi Isha Livnoi Gadol B'Bayis Kanoi. If you build a special base chasanim, Rashi says it was a bais miyuchid she'ein darba. It's not like you make it in your own house. Now your son gets to throw you out of your house. No, but if you made a special house that no one lived in, it was just for the chasana, also the base chasnos, he gets to keep that house. The chazan gets to keep that house. So let's see if we can see the reason why they made these takanas. So Rashi yesterday told us the reason why they were masakin the kinyan of apitlaso is to make it easy to do kinyanim. Morning, and the cause of nechas of leishto is mishum l'shavik lebrei b'yav lachrini. A person will never take away his yerusha from his children and give to someone else. Vein derech lasas king. The only reason why he wrote in the star that all his nechasim to go to his wife is to give her respect and to make her in charge of distributing the estate, but it's not hers. And the third thing, Masi Ishal of Noi, is Kisha'av Meser, Homash Yeshlim and Abayis. If a father takes everything that he needs out of the house and he makes the chasna in the house, it's a sign, Samchale Daite the Ben. What happens is the son says, hey, it looks like my father is vacating the house to give it to me. And that's why they let the son have his house. Gewaltig. Omer Rav, Rav Acha Bardala. Rav told Rav Acha Bardala, Kava de Marika, the kav of saffron, which was a type of spice, Isli Gabach. I have it by you. In other words, you have my saffron. Yahavach Leploini. Give it to Chaim. Be'apei kaminalach. I'm saying this in front of him, so he knows that I'm telling you to do this. The loyhadranabi, because this way, if I'm saying it in front of him, he knows I'm saying it. He knows I'm not backing up. Right to Gemara, Mechlal the boy haderbei, Motzi haderbei. If I'm saying it in front of him, so that I'll sort of be embarrassed to back out. So vice the I technically could back out. If you hold it to kinyan of apitlosa, I can't back out anyway. Zok Gemara, no, that's not how to understand the words. Rather, hachikamar. These words you cannot be chazer because it invoked the kinyan of apitlosa. Zok Gemara, ha'omer Rav chadozim. Didn't the Rav already say this Allah about Pitlosa? So we already know it. And for the Gemara, if I would have only had Rav's halacha telling us about the kinyan of Apitlosa, I would have thought, where do you need Apitlosa to make the kinyan work? That if it's a serious matana, of a matana a little bit of spice, loyly boy b'fanav, you wouldn't need b'fanav. Kamash Malon, that even for a small little matanala like spice, you still need the full kinyan of apitlosa. By the way, you know how much 1 pound of saffron costs? How much do you think 1 pound of saffron costs? It's a type of spice that's made from some type of flour that grows primarily in Iran. You know how much it costs to buy a pound of it? $10,000. 1 pound of saffron is $10,000, almost as much as heroin. It's very, very, very expensive. Not so much because the plant is rare, but it's very hard to produce, to extract it from the flour. Thanks to the Google Hadar that I spoke to yesterday, that I asked yesterday. Oh, really? So saffron is very, very expensive. It's hard to use it. So it could be in those days it wasn't so expensive. It's not a mutanemuetas. So I was talking to Moshe Weinberg about this kinyan of apitlosa, and it seems, what happens if I have my headphones here, and I tell Chaim, I want this to go to Duvi. Is that a kinyan of apitlosa? It's mashma not. It's mashma only if Chaim has this as a bikadon. or he has a milva, and I say give what you're holding to Yenim, that's apitlosa. Well, it's something that obviously Yenim would want, right? There was money involved. But Samazo, I can't say apitlosa. I want this to go to somebody, and I don't know. I'm just looking at the different cases that we see this halacha by, and the question was in the Mishnah. The only place where it's a little vague is the Mishnah that says Tanu Manal Ish Pliny. There, Mehechatesa, it's speaking where someone had that mana as a pekadon. Maybe it's some on the floor. Maybe just look at the money here. My thing is here, give this to Pliny. So I'm not sure about it. I have to look through the show. So Moshe Rabbeinu told me that he thinks it's only if the person who I'm instructing to give it to Pliny has something with it. Like Moshe, he has it as a pekadon. But I don't have a raya yet. Either way, I don't know why it should be that way, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I think in law we call this consideration. There needs to be consideration from the other side.
Meaning he has to have some connection to it.
Get something in return. There's got to be some kind of a transaction for it to consummate.
Okay, it could be. I mean, Moshe Warmberg said it over that way from somebody, but I was trying to look for a raya about that, and I don't see a clear raya yet. Maybe we'll be zeicha to have a raya soon. Okay, but I'll call upon them. We see another example of this kinyan of Mamet Shloshton because Rab told Rav Acha Bardala that he should give over this kav of Marika that he has by him. So to Gemara Biter. This is an interesting story. Hanaginoi, there was a group of gardeners, and gardeners doesn't mean they're Mexican and they cut grass. It means balagina moicher yerek. They cultivated and grew vegetables, and they were vegetable farmers. But they didn't own the land that they farmed on. They leased the land. So the Ovid Choshbon, I guess to a certain extent, they pooled their resources, and then at the end of the harvest, they had to split everything up. So it sounds like there was money that they split up, and maybe they sold the whole crop together, and then they split the money. Whatever the case was, I'm sorry? Hosh Chamesh Isteri Zuze Gabechad Menayim. When they were doing the cheshbon, I guess everyone sold, and then they took all the money, they pooled it. So it turned out one of the three farmers had an extra 5 zuz. Rashi's Ister zuz means there was moist suri, which was 8 times the value of a regular moist. So this is the regular moist. Gabechad Menayim. So what did they do? Amrile, the other two, told the fellow who had extra money. They told him, Havineu lehalei lemore ara. Give this excess money to the landlord as rent, representing all of us. And they said this ba'ape more ara, in front of him. So you might think it's a kinyan petlosa, but they went a step further. The kanumine, they made a kinyan. So maybe the owner of the property gave a handkerchief to this one farmer. He actually made a kinyan to be koine the extra zuzim, these 5 isteri zuze that was by this particular garden. Then this third gardener went and recalculated the cheshbon, and in fact, he didn't have extra money. The problem is he already made a kinyan about these 5 zuzim to give it to the landlord. Also, look, they're Rav Nachman. So they came to Rav Nachman. Do I have to give the money? Amalei, my avidlach. What can I do to help you? Chada. First of all, there was an apitlasa here. Domar Avuna Marav. That there's a kinyan apitlasa, so it belonged to the landlord. V'yoid hakaniminach. You actually made a kinyan chalipin. So there's the checkmate over here. What am I supposed to do for you? Amalei Rabba. Rabba said, what are you talking about? Atu, hi, mi kamer loya hivna. He didn't say I don't want to give it. He didn't refuse to give over something that he made a kinyan on. What he said was the leka gaboy kamar. The 5 zuzim that we made a kinyan on never existed. It was all a tos meikare. Amarlei. Oh, so Rav Nachman said you didn't tell me that. Im kain kinyan betosu. The whole kinyan betos chayzer. The whole thing is based. Yeah, you were marking him 5 zuzim that don't exist. That's not gonna bind. So the first question is, if we have a discussion and I'm agreeable that I owe 5 zuzim, so haidah. Once there's a haidah, how can I change my mind? That's what Tosfos has. Well, the Pashka Lamidi Pierce Rach v'chen Rebbeinu. So you when he read the cheshbon, he showed them, and they said, "Hey, you're right." So Mamela, it's not a shayla of enforcing his haidah. They're also moedim. That's one option. Or maybe there were edim that somehow clarified that the whole thing was mistaken. But it's a mashim from the Rach and the Rebbeinu Tam, who had to find some way to explain why he's believed. Is the minavshei einemon loimer teisi the mashahidisi. He wouldn't be able to say that I was moided, that I owed money. That was a mistake. He's not believed to say that. Even though he has a migu where he said, yeah, I had extra, but I paid it up already. So even though he has a migu, he wouldn't be nemon. He agreed. Give it to me. If he said, I paid you back already, Potter. But if that I deny the whole thing, chayev. First time of the parakamid of Vatra, once you deny a halva that you already agreed to, that's like you said loy parati. Because if you say you didn't ever borrow the money, obviously you never paid it back. So therefore you're no longer believed to say you paid it back. Why can't he say, I don't have the extra money because I made a mistake? Why isn't he believed to say that? When you can't even use a migo to say you made a mistake. Geweldig. Zegt kom maar weiter. Itmar. Heilig manna leploini sheni chayev loy. Reuben owes money to Shimon, and he wants to send the money to Shimon with a messenger. So he tells Levi, do me a favor, take this manna and deliver it to Shimon, because I owe Shimon the money. So the shaila is, while Levi is traveling, an oinus happens to the money. Who lost the money? Did Reuben lose the money because he was supposed to return it to Shimon and he didn't? Or maybe once he already gave it to the shliach, it's like it's already in the rishus of Shimon, and if the money gets lost, it's the malva's loss. So Amar Rav chayiv b'achariyus. I guess it was an oinus, so the shliach wouldn't be chayiv. Right? Is that called an oinus or is that called a pshia? Because that's probably that he forgot it, or now it's probably considered a pshia. I don't know. Probably a pshia, yeah. Now, if it's chayiv b'achariyus, that would indicate that it's still in the rishus of Reuben. Nevertheless, if he tells the shliach, forget it, then give it back to me. If you're not going to be a choy, if Shimon's not going to be a choy, give it back to me. He doesn't have to give it back. So this is like a hybrid. Once we say it's chayiv in achrayis, so therefore, since Reuben is chayiv in achrayis, so then he has the right to take it back. If I tell the shliach, forget it, give it back to me. I don't want to risk sending it with you because if something happens to it, I'm going to have to pay again. So Zoktamar Lema Bahakam. Let's say that this is what they're arguing in. The Marsabar Hoilich Kischidam. One man the world Hoilich is Kischi, which is Rab. Rabba's Hoilich is Kisiri, and therefore in Balachser, in Yachalachser. Because it's like it's Keschi. Why is he chayiv b'achar Yosy frek mati? Zok Rashi, Zok Rashi, claim about alma hilach Keschi. V'im hayu b'matana. I'm sorry. Hilach in the chayzer. Umiyu chayiv b'achar Yosy. You know why? Shal malva lo tzivei lo moishel was that. Shimon never said send it with Levi. Give it to me direct. So therefore, the loivesh Reuben is still going to be chayiv in achrayis, according to this particular shita. Yeah. No, the malva, the loivesh is sucking and blowing. Yeah. I'm sorry, the malva is, because the malva gets the benefit of both sides. The shliach can take the money, and Reuben can't say give me the money back, and Reuben will be chayiv in achrayis. Yeah. That's what Mar Savar, which is Rav. Umar Savar Haylach Lav Keschidami, and Shmuel says that since he's chayiv in achrayis in Balachser Chayzer, why? Because Haylach is Lav Keschidami, and in fact the loy can say give it back to me. I don't want to send it. Dr. Gemara loy the Chula Am Haylach Keschidami. Everybody else Haylach is Keschi, even Shmuel holds Haylach is Keschi, and you shouldn't be able to get it back. Mar Savar loy amrin amigu. Rav says you don't say amigu. Migui that I'm chayiv in achrayis, I get to call it back. Umar Savar and Shmuel holds amrin amigu. You say migui. Since Haylach is Keschidami, since Haylach is Keschidami, then I'm not going to be. I'm sorry. Since I'm chayiv in achrayis, I get to call it back. So Zokt Rashi. Shmuel Savar, b'toich shechai b'achrayis and balach shechosher. So really, be'etem it's a kinyan. Haylach it's Keschi. So once I give the money to the shliach, the Levi, it's as if I said that my malva Shimon should be zoich in it, but it's a new svara. Since you're being mechayiv min achrayis, so I have the right to take it back to protect myself. Zok Gemara Tanya Kabbalah say the Rav. We have a right like Rav that the loiva gets messed up, meaning he cannot take the money back, but he's still chayiv in achrayis. What does it say? Haylach mana leploini. Reuben tells Levi, take this money and deliver it to Shimon. Tani chayiv loy, because I owe him the money. Or he said, tain mana leploini, give this money to Ploni. Tani chayiv loy. Or he said, Haylach mana leploini. Pikadon sheyesh loy biyadi. Or if it's not a milba, it was a pikadon. He says, take this money that I'm watching for him and give it to him. Or he said, Tain mana leplani pikadon sheyesh loy biyadi. So there's two cases, the case of Tain and the case of Haylech, both by pikadon as well as by milba. The loch is chayiv b'achar Yosy, but the balachser einay chayzer. So that's exactly Rav Shita, that the loiva gets hurt on both ends. Side the shliach is zoichenid for the malva or for the mafkid, and the loiva or the nifkad cannot call it back. But nevertheless, the loiva and the nifkad is still chayiv in achrayis. Fact more pikadon, leimalei ein ritzoynoi, tiyei pikdoynoi, v'yad acher. There's a rule. If I give something to you for a pikadon, I don't want you to give it to somebody else. Don't subcontract your services. If I wanted to trust the subcontractor, I would have given it to him directly. I gave it to you. So Oibazoi, with such a svara, then the shliach, in our case Levi, can't be zoiche in it on behalf of the nifkad, of the mafkid, on behalf of the owner, because the owner doesn't want the shliach to have it. The owner wants it to stay by the person who we gave it to originally, and that person should give it directly to him. I don't want it being by a third party. So if that's the case, there's no shchia. Oy bazoi, why can't the shomer ask for it back? Reb Zera, the only time he can ask for it back is because the shomer was known to be a crook. Normally, if I give something to you to watch, I only want you to watch it. I don't want you to subcontract it to somebody else. But if it turns out that you're often a crook, I want that out of your hands as soon as possible, no matter who you would give it to. So in this case, when does Rav say that the loiva is chayiv in achrayis, or the shomer is chayiv in achrayis, yet the shomer can't take it back? That's if the shomer is such a known crook that the rule that applies to every other shomer, that the Baal only wanted by the Shemer he gave it to does not apply here because the Baal knows you're a crook and I want that out of your hands as quickly as possible. Why did he give it to you in the first place? That's a very good question. Kafrin Zakrashi, Bipikot. The Bailam are happy, just get it out of this guy's hands. Every second that it's in his hands, I'm in danger of losing this object. Zakta Heilige Gemara. Rabbi Sheshes Havelei Ashrasa Desarbeli B'Mechuza. Rabbi Sheshes sold coats. That's what he did for a living. And he sold coats not retail to end users. He sold them to clothing stores. If anybody ever had the misfortune of being in the business of supplying stores with clothing, you'll know that the clothing stores generally don't have the money to pay you up front. So you give them enough credit so that they can sell the product retail, make a little bit of money, and then they pay you. I know this because I once shared office space with someone, Rahman al-Islam, who did this for a living. And it was always a hassle for him to run after the retailers to pay after they sold some of the schleyer. So Reb Sheshes had to do the same. So there were merchants in Mechuza who owed him money. So Amalei Rabbi Yosef bar Chama, he told Rabbi Yosef bar Chama, since you're going to Mechuza anyway, Asharta means hakafa. Hakafa means credit. Shenosan sarbolim bashroi, he gave these coats to retailers on credit. Lotzas le'amois does man kabul. So Amalei Rabbi Yosef bar Chama, you're going to Mechuza anyway. Instead of me making the trip, you're going to be there anyway. But Hadi the Osis, when you're coming back from Mechuza, do me a favor. I sin in the heli. Get me the money from my debtors. Ozal, Yavinale. So he went to the store owners, and the guy gave him the money that he owed Rabbi Sheshes, and he sent it back. Amrilei, after he handed the money over to Rabbi Yosef, the store owner said, Nikne minach, meaning I want you to make a kinyan that you should be mechuyev in achrayis. Rashi says, Nikne minach unsadorcha. I want you to be mekabel achrayis if anything happens. The misnasa minach, if your nenas and the money goes missing, loy lahed latoivan, my malva Reb Sheshes shouldn't be able to come collect for me. Amalahu he said, okay, I'll do it. But l'soiv ishtamet lahu. It's a charois gedreit. He didn't accept achrayis. He also lagabei, when he came to Reb Sheshes and he told Reb Sheshes that they wanted you to take achrayis, and I avoided it. Omer lei, Reb Sheshes told him shaper abdos the l'shavis nabshach evid loy malva. So there's two Lashonis and Rashi. There's one shot is Shabar of this, you did good by not accepting it. You know why? Because Eved Loiva Ishmalba. They're on the down side. They're the Loiva. They're mechuyev to get it to me, and unfortunately they'll have to take the risk because they're meshubah to pay me back. That's one Lashon and Rashi. The other Lashon and Rashi is it's good you didn't accept the chrayis because you would have made yourself into Eved Loiva Lishmal. Lishnachrina Shaper Abdus Eved Loiva Lishmalva. I'm sorry, to two Lashonis in the Gemara. The one is Shaper Avdus Shaper Snapshach Eved Loiva Lishmalva. The Shechin is Shaper Avdus because Eved Loiva Lishmalva. So the first Lashon is it's good you didn't make yourself into Eved Loiva. Second shot is it's good you didn't do this because you don't have to because they're the Loiva, they're liable. No, he brought the money, but he didn't accept upon himself the achrayus. Zok Toisvis. L'sayf ishtamet lu. Mashma the bedin lehoyu yichol lekoifoi lahachzir. It's mashma that they couldn't have forced him to give the money back to them. Avagav lehochnu kafronim. They weren't hochnu kafronim. So why did you say ein ritzarni shebektani bi'ad acher? Why don't you say that the Reb Sheshes would rather have? I'm sorry. Oh, hainu mishum the emes hoya shu shluchai v'leimotzi amar ein ritzarni shebektani bi'ad acher. Exactly what Chaim says. Der Reb Sheshes sent them. Vada, gewaltig. Sagt the Heilige Gemara weiter. Reb Achi bar Yoshia havle ispaka the kaspa ben arda. He had a keli of kesef. So it was a pekot. Maybe there was a silversmith in Arda that he sent it to fix, to repair, to polish, but whatever it is, he had a kais of kesef in Arda that he needed to retrieve. So once again, he asked two people to bring it for him. Amalahu l'Rab Dustoi bar Rabbi Yanai, A, and B l'Rab Yosy bar Kippur. he asked these two, Heilige Tzadikim, and he said to them, when you're coming from Nahardah, do me a favor, Asyu Neheli, bring me back my keli. Also, you have a Nahalayu. So they gave him the keli. Amri lahu, then they told him, Nikni minaychu, I want you to be Makabal Achayis. Amri lahu, loy. They told him, no, we're not accepting Achayis. Amri lahu, so they told him, Ahadinel, so then give it back to us. If you're not going to accept Achayis, give it back. We don't want to send it with you. Rab Destoi, Rab Yanai, Amri lahu in. He gave it, he was masking to give it back. Rabbi Yosy bar Kippur Amar loy. I'm not going to give it back to you. As Rashi says, Kidamrino il in bo lasreina chayzer. They can't take it back from him, even though he doesn't want to accept the chrayas. So what did they do? They were tough guys. They were beating the living daylights out of Rabbi Yosy bar Kippur, who didn't want to give it back. Have a kabatzayule. They were beating him up. Give it back to us. Trying to force it. And not only that, as they're beating up Rabbi Yosy bar Kippur, they're telling Rabbi the story, Chazumar. Look at this Rabbi Yosy bar Kippur, how dare he doesn't want to give back this Pekatan to us. So you know what Rabbi Destoy said? Rabbi Destoy Mama stabbed his buddy in the back. Amalu Tav Ramalu, give him petch. He deserves petch because he's not giving it back to you. He also knew that in Balachser Eine Chayzer, and he went and not only didn't he protect his friend, he double crossed him. He said, yeah, petch him, he deserves it. Unbelievable. Rabbi Yosy bar Kippur deserves it. Anyway, he didn't give it back, and they got away. He also when they got back to the owner, who was Rabbi Achi bar Yoshia, when they got back to Rabbi Achi bar Yoshia, what happened? Amr lay. So Rabbi Yosy bar Kippur, who got beaten up, told Rabbi Yoshia, my buddy Rabbi Destoy, he double crossed me. Chazimar. It's bad enough that he didn't help me and protect me. I had a right to hold on to your Haley, and he didn't help me. He encouraged them to beat me up. You're low life. How can you do that to me? So Rabbi Yosy turned to Rabbi Yosy bar Kippur and he asked him, how did you do something so vile? Why would you do something so nice? So not nice. You know you had a right to hold on to it. I asked you to bring it to me. Why were you so easy to give it back to him? I'll tell you why. But why did you do that? Amalei told him back, you know why? Because you didn't tell me who I'm dealing with. Their nama means they're huge, they're strong. The koiva nama and the begadim that they wear are huge and scary. They're big, scary guys. Rashi says, Kloimer, they have such a thick voice, a deep voice, an intimidating voice. It sounds like their voices are coming out of their pipik. I'm not sure exactly what that sounds like, but I guess it was intimidating. And even they have the names of dangerous beasts. Arda, Arta, Upili, Beresh, Umrin. So, Upili, Beresh, period. They had these scary, intimidating names. You know, one guy's name was Brain Crusher. The other one's name was Knuckle Breaker. The other one was called Kneecapper. You know, they had these real mafia names. And they look like mafia, they act like mafia. What do you want from me? And then they're so powerful, Oimrim Kfuzu Kaifsin, if they give their henchmen orders to tie me up, their henchmen would listen and they would tie me up. Oimrim Harugu Organ, or they would have killed him even. And if I would die, the story said, Ilu Hargu as the story, if they would kill me, me nothing liane abba bakamoisi. Who would get my father another son like me? I had to protect my father from losing his son. Omer Lei, Rabbi Yosy asked him one. Right. Why are they still attached? We learned that life is only 2 weeks, but we didn't get back to the Now it's about them. Because vice the Christ, there's no chiv Christ. Unless they're Makabal Achrayis, the loiva is mechuyev. Every loiva is shmalva. The loiva, the shomer is considered a loiva. Well, even though he's a shliach, vice the Christ, he's a shliach, but he's not accepting the Christ. And the Malva can say, you're still to get it, but you're not accepting the Christ. So Amarle, then he asked one more question. Are they well connected in the government that they can get away with murder? Amarle, do they have horses and mules that they can run after you and pursue you if you run away? Amarle, I kind of tightness on you. They would have killed you. So because of that, you did good. How did they survive? I don't know. But if you're in such danger, I'll let you get away. Gewaltig. Sagt er mal weiter. Heilig bana leploini. Heilig bana leploini. V'halach ubikshu v'leimatzu. So Reuven tells Levi, go give this money to Shimon. Levi goes and he looks for Shimon and he can't find Shimon. So what is the status of this money? Tani Chada. One, I have to go fast because we can't stop in the middle here. Tani Chada Yachsuru L'Mishalech. He goes back to the Mishalech. It goes back to Reuben. With Tani Idich, it goes Liyarsha Misha Nishtal Chuloi. If they couldn't find Shimon, because Shimon died, they give it to Shimon's children. So what's the machlokes? Lema b'hakam miflagi. The Marash over Heilich Kischi. One man told us Heilich Kischi, which is the Tanya Idich, who says you give it Liyarsha Misha Nishtal Chuloi because Shimon was koinit, even though he never got it, but he was koinit the moment Reuben gave it to the shliach, and therefore it goes to Shimon's next of kin. Umar Savar, and the other bride holds Lav Kischi, and therefore the kinyan never happened until he actually handed it to Shimon. The shliach was never able to hand it over to Shimon. Therefore it goes back to Reuben. Rav Abba B'Mamel, Amar Rav Abba B'Mamel, no. The Chula Am Hoylech Lav Kischi. Both brides hold Hoylech is Lav Kischi. So why would it go to the Yarshay Mishin Shtalchuloi? If it's a matnas bori, the matnas bori doesn't work unless there's a kinyan done. And that's the brisa that says that it goes back to the Mishaleach. But if it's a shchivmera where the kinyan works, even though it wasn't handed over, so then the kinyan worked, it went to Shimon, even though Shimon died, and therefore it goes over to Shimon's Yarshin. Gewaltig. No, both brises are speaking with a shchivmera. In one case, where the Reuven gave it over to the shliach, when Reuven gave it over to the shliach, Shimon was still alive. So Shimon was zeichen it right away, even though it wasn't delivered to Shimon. And therefore, when Levi goes, when the shliach goes to look for Shimon, and Shimon's already dead, he can give it to Shimon's children because Shimon was koined already. And the case where it says it goes back to Reuven is speaking where even when Reuven handed it over to the shliach, Shimon was dead already. Rav Papa wanted to say, Hava Bori. They're both Bori. Hada mis Mekabel b'chayin noisim. If the Mekabel died when the Noisin was still alive, Rashi says, if it's mis Mekabel b'chayin noisim, if Shimon died before Reuven, then Yachsuru l'Mishalayach. Then it goes back to Reuven. The Leizacha b'hen Mekabel, because Shimon is not Zeichen. Va'afilu meis ha'noisin b'chazeres ha'shliach, even though the shliach now is coming back to bring the money back to Reuven, and by the time the shliach gets back, Reuven dies. Ein kan mishamitzel akayim divrei hameis. Now we're introducing a new concept of even if it's not a kinyan, but there's a mitzvah to do the will of the mace. And the mace wanted it to go to Shimon. But in this case it didn't. Before Reuben died, Shimon already died. So it would have been impossible to be Mekayim Divrei Mace. And even if they both died, it still goes back to the Noisin, because by the time the Noisin died, there's no Divrei Mace to be Mekayim. Right? And had the misnoisim b'chayim makabel. But if Reuben died before Shimon, then of course it would work. Dr. Rashi, is the misnoisim. Reuben died. So Reuben gave it to Levi and said, please bring this to Shimon. Then Reuben dies. Levi continues to go to Shimon, and he delivers it to Shimon. But died makabel chay. As soon as Reuben died, Zacha behena makabel. The makabel Shimon is zoichin it, not because there was a kinyan made. We said it to Matnas Bari, there is no kinyan. But it works because of the mitzvah, l'kayim divrei emes, v'afilu yabari. Sorry? Correct. Zok to Gemara. No, it's not a Matnas Shchimra, it's a different thing, because he's buried. Matnas Shchimra means he says it when he's sick. Here he said it when he was buried, but there's still a need of mitzvah l'kayim divrei emes. It could be it's not a kinyan, but it still goes to them. I don't know if it's mamash a kinyan. But the being mekayim the different message that it should go to the next of kin. So you're saying who said? Maybe he only wanted to go to him, not to it. Maybe he only wanted to go to the guy. That's going to come up. That's a story that's going to come up in fact. Let's a hoylech cheschli is a machlokes tanoim, and here we're going to have a whole variety of opinions. One of the opinions is going to be, yeah, I wanted to go to Shimon, not to Shimon's kids. The Tanya we learned, hoylech man lePloini. I'm sending a man to Pliny, and we're learning that this is working with a Matnas Bari because we want to say that it's relevant to the shaila of hoylech cheschli. The halachu bikshu v'lei matzai. The shluch went to find Shimon, they couldn't find him. Yachzru leMishaleach. They bring it back to the Mishaleach. This is l'chul alma so far. Why? Because there's no kinyan. What happens if Meis Mishaleach? When he gets back, he finds out that Reuben died. Rav Nosson Rav Yaakov Amru Yachzru liYarshei Mishaleach. There's no mitzvah l'kayim divrei meis. It goes to the Yarshei Mishaleach. It was dead in the water. But yes, Sharmim liYarshei Mishin Ishtalchulai. There are those who hold it goes liYarshei Mishin Ishtalchulai because it's mitzvah l'kayim divrei meis, and the meis even wants it to go to the Yarshim of the person who is gifting it to. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Amar Mishum Yaakov from Mishum Meir mitzvah l'kayim divrei meis. And the Gemara is going to ask, what's the difference between this shita and the shita before? The difference is he's going to hold you give it to the Shimon, but if Shimon dies, you don't give it to Shimon's kids because, like Mati said, who said I want to give it to Shimon's kids? The Chachamim Yachloiku, the Chacham hold it to Suffolk, so you split it. The Kanamer, and here they paskin. Let's look at the Bach inside, and here they paskin. Where's my Bach? Kanamer, Masha Yirtze. Yeah, so the shliach could decide whatever he wants to do. In other words, Rashi says, he's believed to say that I understand what my Mishalech really wanted. He can decide and what the intention of the Mishalech was. There was once a story in my days. And the Rabbanim Paskin, so we have 5 different opinions here. My love, let's say this is the machlokes. The Tanakama Savar hoylech lav keschi, and therefore it goes back to the Mishalech or the Yosy Mishalech. From Nosson Bar Yaakov, nami hoylech lav keschi. They all told hoylech lav keschi, and the avagav de mis. Even though Reuben died, you still don't give it to Shimon because they don't buy into this svara at all. Le'arminon mitzvah l'kayim divrei emes. Period. Yeshavim, the third sheet held, hoylech is kischi, and the balt hoylech is kischi. They said that give it to Yorshim because he would say he was kind of right away, and let's see Rashi because there's a lot into this Yoshem. There's a lot included in this Yeshavim. Yoshem hoylech kischi upligi afilu loy meis mishalech. They argue even the meis didn't die. So even without mitzvah l'kayim divrei meis, you have a kinyan. They argue with Tanakama. Okay, so we'll go by there. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Amar Mishum Yaakov Shem Mishum Meir hoylech lav keschi, and he holds hoylech is lav keschi, and that's why he said mitzvah l'kayim divrei meis, but you give it anyway. So that's the difference between him and the Tanakama, right? He holds hoylech keschi, and he holds mitzvah l'kayim, and he doesn't hold mitzvah l'kayim, and that's what Rashi says. The Teda, I know that the Yeshavim have to hold hoylech is laf keschi, and you don't say mitzvah l'kaim divrei meis. To me, the Kamer Rabbi Yehuda nasi mitzvah l'kaim divrei meis. Shemamino must be that shaminu yesh armrim the tolu tamai b'hoylech keschi dami v'afilu loy meis mishaleach. They held that you don't say hoylech keschi. But Amar Hiu, and he said dafka meis the mitzvah l'kaim dvarav of a loy meis loy hoylech laf keschi. And then you have the last shita. So Rabbi Yehuda nasi Amar Shem Biakov Shem Shem Meir hoylech laf keschi meal. Heicha demis, but if he did die, Amrina mitzvah l'kaim divrei meis. You do say mitzvah l'kaim divrei meis. The Chachamim Aimrim yachloiku because misafkalahu he is a suffix ikeschi iloi and i mitzvah l'kaim iloi. There's a suffix on everything, so therefore shachloiku. The Chan number, and here they said shudadif we'd rather rely on the shliach. He spoke directly to the sender. He knows what the sender's intent was. Correct the Gemara. Reb Shimon ben Nasi. Maisa also lashminan, and the Shimon and the Nasi was telling us a story. So we have to stop here. So the Gemara is suggesting you see there's this multiple way machlokes if hoylech is kasri and included in it is a shayla of mitzvah l'kaim divrei meis. So you have such a raya. So the Gemara says loy bepari the chula alma loy pligi. Everybody holds that it works. Everybody holds that it wouldn't work. I'm sorry. That's lav kasri, and they re-mefarish this entire brisa by Amat Nashchimra. But it's already 6:50, so we'll be mamshech this later. So basically, tomorrow we're going to review a little bit that this 5-way machlokes in the brisa. At first, the Gemara wanted to suggest is totally the machlokes of hoylech cheschi, and tomorrow we're going to learn a different approach to learning the whole brisa that it's not a shayla of hoylech cheschi, it's a shayla of Amat Nashchimra. Okay, we'll stop here. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you.